Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to C-Space Marda Loop here at the King Edward. It's a beautiful blend of old and new, and it reminds us of what we've been doing on this land for so long, on this ancient land. We're here in the valley of the Elbow River, in a place where people have been coming to for thousands of years. The Blackfoot call this place Mokinstis, and drawn by the water, people have been coming here for thousands of years to live, to love, to laugh, to dance, to fight sometimes. Sounds a lot like a New Democrat caucus meeting, except for the live, love, laugh parts. But ultimately to engage in that very real act of building community. And today we are called upon once again to defend our community and to build our community stronger. And that is why we are here today. And I want to thank all of you behind me for coming. We've got many of my Alberta New Democrat colleagues here. We have many everyday citizens here, all of whom have been echoing the number one question I get from Albertans right now. And that question is a simple one. What can I do? I call it the most Canadian of questions. In a time right now where life feels heavy and hard, where people are worried about the cost of living and healthcare and education and public safety. They're worried about the government and how they're managing their money in huge deficits. They have a lot to worry about. But now, Albertans are worried about the future of our nation, the future of a country that we have worked so hard to build. Even the talk of referendum has frozen investment. It's slowed down our economy, and most important, it has pitted neighbor against neighbor, and it's created division. And so we often hear from people every day, what can I do? And that's why we're here today. I'm excited today to launch a new campaign, a campaign for everyday Albertans, a campaign for everyday citizens to get involved in the fight to save Canada. And today we launch For Alberta, For Canada. So Albertans, of course, have concerns with the placement of this province in Confederation. We always have. But here's the thing. Albertans are fighters. Albertans fight to make it better, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. To borrow a phrase, we lead, we don't leave. And this is what For Alberta, For Canada is about. It's a chance for everyday people to get involved in their own neighborhoods and their own communities and to do their own role in the fight to save Canada. And yes, this is powered by Alberta's New Democrats, but everyone is welcome. Joining in For Alberta, For Canada doesn't make you a New Democrat member. It doesn't make you join any political party. What it makes you is a fighter for Canada, a true patriot. And we're taking back patriotism.
You bet.
So we're calling on every Albertan now to do three simple things. Number one, visit foralbertaforcanada.ca. Go to foralbertaforcanada.ca and sign up with one simple click. Two, on Saturday, April 25th, we're getting together. We're getting together with like-minded Canadians for our first collective day of action. Join us on Saturday, April 25th. Put it in your calendar now. And three, most important, tell your friends, your family, and your neighbors about For Alberta, For Canada, and encourage them to sign up. Once you're on the website, you're going to see a bunch of ways you can get more involved in a bunch of things you can do to help answer that question, what can I do? And with more, I'm going to turn it over to my deputy leader, the MLA for Edmonton-Whitemud, Raki Pancholi.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nahed. And I'll say it again and again. We are proud Albertans and we are proud Canadians. And we know that the vast majority of the people in this province feel the exact same way. So I'm disappointed that the separatist movement in this province is using Albertans' frustrations about our relationship with Ottawa and in the Federation as an excuse to tear our province apart and to tear our country apart. The separatist organizers are not being honest with Albertans about the real consequences and negative impacts of separatism, of the costs associated with Alberta becoming an independent country, of the impact on our relationships with the rest of Canada and the world, economic and trade relationships, but also our connections with Canadians all across this country. Separatism pits neighbors against neighbors. It pits families and friends against each other. It happened in Quebec, and it will happen in Alberta. In a time of incredible global uncertainty, we don't need more uncertainty in Alberta and in Canada. We need stability, and we need to show that we are proud of this country and proud of this province. Yes, Albertans are right to be frustrated that our value and contributions to a strong and prosperous Canada have not always been recognized properly by the federal government. But the solution is not separating from Canada. That only puts everything we stand for and that we fight for at risk. And I'm also deeply upset that the government is intentionally ignoring the Forever Canadian petition. Nearly 500,000 Albertans signed that petition last year, proudly declaring that they believe Alberta should remain in Canada. And the government has done nothing but delay the work required by their own laws to respond to it. Hundreds of thousands of Albertans have made their views on separatism very clear. That is an extremely powerful and clear message from the people of this province who love this country and want Alberta to stay in it. That's 500,000 Albertans who are now asking, what do we do next to make sure that our voices are heard? For Alberta, for Canada is what's next. This campaign will provide a place to go, a way to organize, and a way to take action to support the province and the country that we love. So we're asking all Albertans to join us by 1, visiting foralbertaforcanada.ca and signing up. It's very easy to do. 2, participating in our first provincial day of action on Saturday, April 25th. We will be getting out into communities across the province, knocking on doors and kicking off a person-to-person campaign to stand up against separatism and to stand up for Canada and Alberta. And 3, telling your friends, your family members, and neighbors to do the same. Naheed spoke about the importance of the Day of Action, and I want to speak to the importance of that last step, telling others to do the same. We need your help, Alberta. When you extend a personal invite, when you make a phone call, send a direct message to someone asking them to take part, it means so much more than sending an email or doing a post on social media. It will be those actions from everyday Albertans that will grow this movement and ensure we can mobilize ahead of a separatism referendum this fall. Our province and our country depend on all of you to take action, and we're giving you a way to do that today. Thanks. I'm now going to turn it over to Naheed for any questions.
So, we've been spending a lot of time talking to Albertans about separatism, but also talking to people around the world about their experience with separatism. In Brexit, in the Quebec referenda of 1980 and 1995, and to many, many others. And here's what we know. The Premier thinks this is a political game. She thinks it's about pandering to her base, about pandering and playing both sides, and she's going to wrap herself up in the cape and say she is Captain Canada and only she can save Canada. For her, it's just a game. For us, this is serious work about the future of the greatest nation on earth. She is playing games for her own political survival with the future of this country. And what we know from every other place we've gone is you can never take any of this for granted. We are not sleepwalking into this referendum. We are standing up for Canada with our full voices, with our full throats for the greatest country ever built. Yeah. And I use built deliberately because Canada is not perfect. It's a big and complicated and bruised country, and in some times we fight with one another. But you know what? Every single day, I am thankful that my parents chose this country. Because there is nowhere else in the world we would rather be having these hard conversations. But that means we got to fight for this country, and we've got to fight for it every single day. That's what For Alberta, For Canada is about. Because we know that there are so many Albertans out there who believe this, who know this, or who maybe think separatism is not a big deal, we don't have to worry about it, it's just a fringe, or who maybe think, I have no idea what I want to do. But what we know from Brexit, from the previous Quebec referenda, is it's time for good people to stand up. And it's about all of us, but more important, it's about everyday people in their everyday lives. About everyday people using our everyday hearts, our everyday minds, and our everyday voices to stand up for this country. Because this country is worth fighting for. And one thing we know as Canadians that we've always known as Canadians is that we are better together. So go to foralberta4canada.ca. The next 6 months are going to be a lot of work, but it starts now. Sign up now. Let's save this country. For Alberta, for Canada. So happy to take questions.
All right, for folks joining us in the room, I'll ask you to come up to the mic, and for folks joining us online, use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. We will start online with Matthew Black. Matthew, your line should be open.
Oh, good morning. I was hoping you
Matthew.
could talk a bit about the timing. What made now the right time to launch this campaign?
We're about 6 months out from a potential referendum, and it was really important for us to get started now. Now, a lot of folks might say, you know, shouldn't you wait until they have their signatures, until they've all been set? But we want to make sure we're getting out there right now. And what's very, very clear is the separatist movements say they have the target number of signatures, but the only reason they have the target is because the Premier reduced the target for them. And we even heard, shockingly, because they have no respect for the law or judges or the judiciary, we even heard shockingly the separatists say, even if the courts stop this because it's unconstitutional, we already know the question is unconstitutional. They expect that Danielle Smith will put forth the separatist referendum anyway. She's obviously promised them this. So we got to get started. We got to get started, and we got to get working right now, because what we know is if you were there in 1995, and I was there at that rally on the streets of Montreal in 1995, Canadians woke up about 2 weeks before that referendum and said, oh man, we're going to lose our country. We got to do something. And we came within a sliver of losing our country. We're not repeating that mistake. We're not repeating the mistake of the people who thought Brexit would never pass. We're getting out there now. We're mobilizing people. We're showing them how and where and when to vote, and we're helping them talk to their neighbors. And I think that's critical, and it's critical to start now.
Do you have a follow-up, Matthew?
Yeah, I was just curious how this relates to Thomas Lukaszik's own campaign. Are these two campaigns with like the same parallel cause working separately, or are you guys working directly together?
So first of all, let me say Thomas Lukaszik is a great Canadian who has done amazing things for this country. And I think he himself was probably a bit surprised at the vein that he tapped into of patriotism and real Canadian feeling in the country. It's fantastic. And so we've been in close contact with Thomas. He is doing his thing. We're doing our thing. What For Alberta, for Canada is really about is helping everyday people get involved. You know, in political campaigns, you have an air war and you have a ground war. And lots of people are going to be making speeches, from Thomas Lukaszik to Jason Kenney and everyone in between. They're going to be writing op-eds. We're going to see lots of ads. But what we really wanted to do was give individuals the chance to get involved in their communities. And that's really what For Alberta, for Canada is about. So if you are a Forever Canadian canvasser or volunteered with that, we encourage you to also sign up with For Alberta, for Canada, and between us we'll have lots of opportunities. There will be many, many, many people fighting for Canada. But this campaign is really about giving everyday people the tools and the power they need to make change in their own neighborhoods.
All right, our next question comes from Sean Amato, City News. Sean, your line should be open.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Sean.
Hello. So it appears that Elon Musk, the world's richest man, is not for Alberta, for Canada. He has signaled support for Alberta's separation. We know that other Trump allies have done so in the past. So do you think these high-profile folks supporting Alberta independence hurts or helps your campaign to keep the country together?
Well, if I was speaking to you strictly as a political campaigner, I would say bring it on. It certainly helps. The challenge here is this. The government of Alberta has written shoddy legislation around these referenda. There are all kinds of holes in this. And every single time we raise with the Premier the possibility of foreign interference in these referenda, she just waves it off. This is the same government that screams when there's a threat of foreign interference from China or from India. It's the same government that assumes every newcomer who votes is voting fraudulently and is forcing us to put our citizenship marker on our driver's licenses. This is not the problem. The problem is foreign money and foreign influence. And we know the separatist leaders have already met with the US government. We know they asked Trump for $500 billion to help fund the independence movement. So this is real foreign interference. We've had the highest levels of the Trump administration talk about independence, and the Premier either doesn't care or she loves the attention she's getting from Trump. Either way, that is dangerous for this country, and we have to make sure that it's Canadians and Albertans in particular who are making the choice, not foreign actors.
Do you have a follow-up, Sean?
Yeah, I do on a different topic, if I
Sure.
may. Avi Lewis, have you spoken to him? We understand there may have been some contact there between camps. Meanwhile, the UCP is preparing an ad trying to tie Avi Lewis's policies to you. What is the latest there? Have you had any good conversations with him?
Let's be clear, the guy's dad just died, right? He's got bigger priorities than to hang out with me. But this is the thing. This is what the UCP does. And by the way, they're using taxpayer money for that. They gave themselves $1 million in taxpayer money to run attack ads against me. That's who they are. But they're so desperate to distract people from their own horrible, broken record. They're terrible on the economy. They're freezing investment. Unemployment is much higher than when Danielle Smith became the Premier. People are scared about the cost of living. The cost of gas has gone up 40 cents a litre in a month, and they refuse to give gas tax relief. They're running one of the largest deficits in Alberta history despite oil and gas booming. And I don't need to tell anybody that they've broken healthcare and they've broken education. This is all they want to distract us from. Separatism is also a distraction. It's a particularly dangerous distraction. I will talk to the UCP and to Danielle Smith every day about their record on healthcare, on education, on the cost of living, and on the economy, and on how bad they are with money. And they can talk every day about Avi Lewis. Albertans know who they're really voting for.
Our next question comes from the room. Please state name and outlet.
Hi, Kevin
Kevin.
Green from CTV News. In your speech before the questions, you referred to Danielle Smith and how she says she is for Canada. She has repeatedly said in many press conferences and many public events that she is pro-Canada, in a way.
In a way. She uses some word salad.
Yeah. Do you believe her?
No, I absolutely do not. Because she says she is for a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Those are meaningless words. It's absolute word salad. And by the way, it's word salad that she stole from the Parti Québécois. That's where it comes from. And certainly no one would say they were pro-Canada. And so ultimately, I don't really care if Danielle Smith is a proud Canadian or not. I judge her on her record. And her record is she's pandered to the separatists. She says it's a harmless pressure release valve. Every single member of her caucus has refused to sign a statement that says, I oppose separatism, I am a proud Albertan, and I am a proud Canadian. So she's playing us for fools. But one thing I know is that Albertans are not fools. They see right through her. And also, she's not very good at it. So she's doing exactly what David Cameron did before Brexit. But I don't think she made it to the end of the book. But somehow she thinks she's a smarter or better politician than the former Prime Minister of the UK. Spoiler, she is not. And her games are risking the future of this country, and every Albertan has a right to be upset about that.
A follow-up. I'm looking at the room here, leader of the NDP standing at the podium, some MLAs behind you and supporters, and I see red. I don't see orange, I see red. Is this an... okay, tiny bit of orange in your tie. But the reality is what I see in this room is red. And I guess I'm asking you, is this a move to rebrand the New Democrats in Alberta or to separate yourself from the big orange of the big party nationally?
No, I got a brand new orange leather bracelet at the Calgary Stampede yesterday. I'm really excited about it. It says resilience on it. No, what this is, though, but you're onto something here, Kevin, that I do want to address, which is somebody's got to do the work of standing up for Canada. And we know that Danielle Smith is going to wrap herself in the Canadian flag, but we also know she's not going to lift a finger against the separatists. She's not going to lift a finger to ensure the Remain side wins in the referendum. Somebody's got to do it. Now, if I get all pundity about it, I will tell you that the legislation is so badly written that it makes it hard for third parties to do the work. It's much easier for an existing political party to do it. So what we're saying is that this campaign is powered by the Alberta New Democrats. And we have, for legal reasons, we have to have tiny little things on the sign that say, powered by the Alberta New Democrats, and little tiny writing on the bottom. But this is actually for everybody. This is, you know, when you sign up at foralbertaforcanada.ca, you're not joining the NDP. You're not saying you're going to vote for us. But we want to engage every single Albertan who believes in Canada in this. And quite frankly, we have the ability to do it. We've got 25,000 volunteers signed up already. We have the ability to be able to run the ground campaign in a way that others don't, and we're happy and willing to take on that role. You know, I wish I didn't. I wish I could just talk about public health care and how the UCP has ruined the economy forever. But the UCP has set the wheels in motion, and somebody has to stand up for Canada, and we are proud and thrilled to do that on behalf of all Albertans.
All right, our next question is from CTV Online. Connor, your line should be open.
Connor, are you there?
Oh. Okay, Connor, we will come back to you. I'm going to move to Catherine Grigowski from All Alberta. Catherine, your line should be open.
Yeah, good morning. So on the point of you don't have to be a New Democrat, you are collecting people's names and addresses. So how much of this work will be used to build a broader political movement of engaged people heading into a general election?
I think you've asked the question in a really, really smart way, Catherine, which is right now people feel very helpless. And so the idea is, if we can mobilize people on Canada, I would be thrilled if those folks continue to be activists in their communities, continue to get involved in politics, because politics matters. And people are so cynical and disengaged and cut off from the news right now that the one and only good thing that could come out of Danielle Smith doing all of this is that she wakes up the average Albertan who just wants a better Alberta. And if this mechanism, if this campaign becomes a mechanism for people to get more involved in the future, I'm all for it.
Do you have a follow-up, Catherine?
Yeah, to follow up on Matthew's earlier question about the timing, I think as we speak, there's an injunction hearing trying to stop the petition from going ahead. And I'm wondering how that plays out with this campaign, how the eventual committee meeting with the Lukaszuk petition plays out. How do all these factors affect the rollout and education pieces of this campaign?
It's a terrific question. And so basically, I should have said right up front that there are many, many people who are fighting the Alberta government on this, and primary among those right now is the Indigenous people. Every single chief in Alberta voted non-confidence in Danielle Smith. That has never happened in Canadian history before, and they're putting forward these injunctions. But what is shocking to me is the leaders of the separatist movement are hanging out with the government lawyers at these injunction hearings. They've actually said publicly and in court that they expect that Danielle Smith will give them their referendum regardless of what happens with the injunction. I mean, that's shocking. But it also indicates that a deal has been made. Let's not forget that one of the three leaders of the separatist movement is also a UCP party president. So this is a separatist party and a separatist government, and they are going to have a referendum. So we're showing them that we are ready for them no matter what happens. And hey, if Danielle Smith shows up tomorrow and says, I don't believe in separatism, we will never have a referendum, and I got to shut all this down, well, at least we made a beautiful logo. But that's not going to happen. And our job really is to ensure that Albertans are ready, because this separatist government and the separatist party are going to have a separatist referendum, and we have to stand up for Canada.
All right, Connor, let's try this again. Your line should be open. Connor from CTV.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, you're there now. Hi.
Oh, fantastic. Apologies. The unmute prompt didn't work. I just wanted to follow my colleague Kevin's line of questioning, just in terms of asking how separate, bad choice of words, how separate the For Alberta, For Canada campaign is from Alberta's New Democratic Party.
Yeah. So as I say, we're using the words powered by Alberta's New Democrats. And so how it works is this. I'll just get into it with you so we understand. The legislation is very badly written, as I said before. So groups like Forever Canadian have quite a limited scope in what they can do, particularly once the referendum is called. They're called third-party advertisers, and the third-party advertiser legislation in Alberta has always been bad. Political parties have a lot more freedom. And so the reason that we're powering this campaign is twofold. Number one is because we already have lots of people who are engaged in this in I was going to say all 87, but maybe it's 89, maybe it's 91 constituencies across the province. But we have, tens of thousands of people already signed up. So we have a really good head start on this. But then technically, there's a bunch of things that we can do that others can't do, that every political party can do. Have access to the voter list, be able to contact people directly, be able to raise money and issue tax receipts, things like that. And so it really made sense for us to have this party powered by Alberta's New Democrats, but this campaign powered by Alberta's New Democrats, but For Alberta, For Canada really is for everyone to get engaged. And as I said earlier, I hope it mobilizes a new generation of people to be activists.
Do you have a follow-up, Connor?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there any concern on the NDP's point of view that this campaign could further legitimize the idea of Alberta independence?
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I think a lot of Albertans have said to me, the only reason we're talking about independence so much is because you're talking about it so much. But that's not true. That's what the government would like. They want it to be just enough of a distraction from their terrible record, but not a complete distraction from their terrible record. So the challenge here is what we learned with Brexit and with the Quebec referenda is you can't take this stuff for granted. It's going to happen. There's going to be a referendum. And referenda are dangerous for three reasons. The first is they are notoriously hard to poll. Voter turnout really matters, and I know that the morning after the Brexit referendum, a very large number of people in Britain woke up and said, oh, damn, I should have voted. So we've got to get the vote out. We've got to get people expressing their vote because you don't know what will happen in the referendum. The second is the very concept of a referendum is destabilizing. It's a huge waste of time and money. It will cost $100 million or more that I would much rather see in healthcare or education. And it plays right into Trump's hands. The number three reason is it's incredibly divisive, right? Neighbors are fighting with neighbors now. People aren't listening to one another. They're not in the same place about finding great solutions. So it was really important to us to say, we got to fight against this. And as I say, the number one most common email I get has the subject line, what can I do? And certainly the separatists are dominating the airwaves, they're dominating social media, and they have a voice much larger than the polls would say their numbers are. So it's now time for everyday Albertans to stand up and have their voices heard.
All right, we're going to do one final pass for questions. And no more questions. That concludes our press conference.
Great, thank you everyone. Thanks for being here. And if you guys don't mind sticking around. Oh, yay.